I grew up on a farm, not just any farm, as you can see here. It was an ostrich farm. It was in the south of Denmark, and my parents actually ended up having the biggest ostrich farm in Europe, in Denmark, back in the 90s. I don't know how much you know about ostriches, but it's a bird that originates from Australia and South Africa. And that was in Denmark, cold Denmark. So if that sounds odd to you, I can tell you it was very odd. It also meant that my first job, when I was 9 years old, was to blow out the inside of an ostrich egg if the egg wasn't fertilized. I don't know if you've ever seen an ostrich egg or if you actually held one, but it's quite a sizable egg. There's 25 chicken eggs that fits inside an ostrich egg. So I was literally sitting in my rubber boots with this ostrich egg leaning on one side of my knee, and then an air compressor in the other hand, and then slowly, super slowly, blowing air into the egg so that the egg white and the yeast could flow out. Because we would either use the egg or we would sell it, right, the eggshell. And if anything, this exercise definitely taught me patience. Because as you can imagine, if you try to go a little bit too fast and blow a lot of air into an egg like that, it just explodes. And I would be sitting with egg all over me. But another thing that it also taught me, this first job, even if I was just 9 years old, was that I was definitely not meant to be working solo, alone, in my rubber boots. I was meant to work with people and connect with people. I love people. I love their stories. I love connecting with them. Actually, I would say I crave people. I'm not like a cannibal or anything. I just generally really like people. I think most of us have built our personal lives around connections, right? Our friends and family, neighbors, roommates, classmates. But in my case, I've also built up my entire career on connections. And that's what I want to tell you about here today and give you some insights into how you can build up your professional lives around a strong network and how that has worked for me. So the first thing is to act and make people feel like they're important. And why is that? So doing my studies back in Denmark again, I was working next to my studies. That's pretty normal in Denmark, by the way. And it was in different places, in supermarkets, in restaurants, kiosks, translating companies, newspaper companies. The point is that there were all places that I knew that I was not going to make a career. Not because there was anything wrong with those companies or those places to work. It was just because my career ambitions were different. But still, even though that was the case, I was still treating all of those companies and all of those people that I met in those companies, all of the customers that I engaged with in those companies, like they were the most important people, right? And why did I do that? Well, first of all, they're people, so you should be nice in general, right? There's no reason not to be nice. But also because you never know when those connections or those people would lead to your next experience, to your next job, or to your next connection that would be important for you. And effectively what I did after each job was that I asked for a recommendation letter so that I could use that into my next experience. Today, I'm also still in contact with a leader I had in one of those jobs at the supermarket. It's 20 years ago I started work there. But some of the feedback that he gave me was that I should believe more in my intuition and as to what I believed was right or wrong. And one of the things he did as a leader really stuck with me for many years. He was always writing us handwritten notes if we did something remarkable. That's not so common nowadays, right? So he was writing us a personal note. If we did a good job or if we had treated a customer well or whatever it was, he would write us a note and mention our names in front of the rest of the supermarket. Years later, I was leading a team of 10 salespeople, and I implemented this in my team as well. So every time my team would close a deal, I wrote them a handwritten note, and then I gave them a little Lego figure. I'm from Denmark, you know. And those Lego figures, they would actually be putting them on their external screen, so they were putting on their desks as little trophies, and they would save those handwritten notes. So act and make people feel like they're important. People will never forget how you make them feel, that's for sure. And I can promise you that during my professional life, I've done a bunch of mistakes. And I will do 5,000 more mistakes, thankfully, because that's how we learn and develop as human beings, as individuals, as professionals, right? But one time I did such a huge mistake that I was actually wondering if I was ever going to make up for it again. I had a guy on my team who didn't treat a customer very well, and I figured that it would be a good idea to tell him this actually in front of the rest of the team, so that in plenum we could, learn together from his mistake, and we would all know what not to do in the next situation we were encountered with, right? Big mistake. Really big mistake. When I did that, he felt so embarrassed and he was so angry with me for such a long time that I thought he was going to leave my team or even leave the company because of me. Because when you tell something negative to someone, let's say, in front of others, it has like 10 times the effect. And on the other hand, if you tell something positive to people in front of others, it also works much better. So when you have something, let's say, more negative-oriented feedback to say to someone, something that you want to tell them that they should improve on, more constructive feedback, try to always do that in a one-to-one setting, alone with that person. And if you have something nice to say to someone, to anyone, could be a personal or professional situation equally, but when you say that in front of others, it will really have a bigger effect. So remember that people will never forget how you make them feel. Open up. So the network that I built for myself really helped me open up doors I wouldn't have imagined, like opportunities I wouldn't have thought I would ever have if it wasn't because of the network that I've built for myself. And why is that? Well, the thing is, they know me very well. They know where I'm from, where I want to go. They know my worst fears, my biggest dreams. They know my bad morning, my great days. And why do they know these things? They know it because I opened up. You will never be able to build strong connections if you don't open up to people. It just doesn't work like that. Then it's just a connection. It's not a strong connection. If you think about it, maybe before coming here today, or maybe any other day, you would be having one of those mornings where you spilled coffee all over yourself, or you woke up late and you had to stress a lot, or maybe the quite opposite, you ran 10K and you did a lot of stuff before 9 a.m. and you feel great about yourself. And you walk into school and one of your classmates are asking you, how are you? And you're like, good, and you? That's quite superficial, right? Try to open up, share a bit more details about yourself, and then you'll see how most likely that other person will also start sharing some details about him or herself. And if not, then maybe it's not a connection worth having, right? But the point is, if you don't open up, you will never make strong connections that can actually help you move forward in your professional life. Be present. Seems like an easy thing to do, but it's actually really not. There is something very rare about personal connections in the very digitalized world that we live in. And it's quite hard to get out of our phones and trying to be to be present, but try to give it a go. Try to leave your phone the next time you talk with someone, or give a little bit of extra time to that person that you would like to connect with. Even in a virtual setting, put your camera on. It seems like a very silly thing, but actually it shows that you're present and it shows that you are attentive to what the person is presenting. So it's those little things that will help us be more present, walking up to someone instead of sending them a text or an email. Call them. Try to be a bit more personal in your interactions, or try to be, in generally, a bit more present. So why should you care so much about building up connections and a strong network for yourself? Well, first of all, you will have people supporting you when you create your first company. You will have people supporting you when you maybe fail building that first company. You will have people that are also there for you, maybe giving you your next career opportunity, maybe helping you get promoted. Whatever it is, you, instead of having just connections with anyone can make, you will have strong connections. And I'm not telling you to be nice to people because that will give you your next promotion. That's not the point. The point is that the future of business is also depending on us and you making those strong connections if you really want to succeed in life. I can promise you it's really not about having sharp elbows and getting ahead the first, even though if we sometimes might think that in the beginning, that's okay. But sooner or later we'll realize that it's really not. Being nice people, being good to each other, will give you a much further start ahead than you would think. So if you build strong connections, the difference that you will have instead of someone who has a lot of connections on LinkedIn or whatever, is that you will actually have a network of friends and not just a network of people. Thank you very much.